Welcome, everyone, to this week's Menlo Midweek podcast. My name is Mark. We have Phil with us today.
Hey, everybody.
And Mette.
Hello.
Welcome, Mette.
Thank you.
Mette, for those that might have missed we did a little spotlight on you at some point last year for our Storyteller series. But for those that might have missed it, remind people who you are, what campus you're going to, and the role that you've had this summer with us.
Yes, my name is Mette Gosvig. I go to Menlo San Mateo most frequently, but this summer I've been so lucky to be the intern for Next Gen, along with 3 other people, Aiden, Jack, and Kristen.
Awesome.
Love them so much.
Shout out.
Literally shout out. But yeah, I've been able to go around to every single campus on Sundays, which has been amazing, making those connections and everything. It's great with the kids and volunteers and congregation members. It's great.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
So fun. One of my favorite things is when the interns come around the office, there's just visible commotion and audible commotion that happens. And it's usually just Mette greeting people like very energetically, which is great. And then everyone else kind of following along, talking about whatever song or movie or whatever else is trending that week.
Yeah.
It's pretty
and some
great.
of that's just like young people having energy and enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I think some of it, I think this is just Mette. I think this is
so
going to
too,
be
actually.
the rest of your life, and I love it. Now, remind me, Mette, part of your story was you didn't really have church experience.
Yes.
You came to the States, were looking for community. Somebody was talking about church like on a school bus or something, and you asked if you could come to church with them. Do I remember this correctly?
Yes. The school
Amazing.
bus, there's a lot of stories about on the school bus.
Yeah.
It's a crazy place. But one good thing came out of it that I overheard
In the
a
history
conversation.
of school buses,
right?
there's one good thing that has happened.
And it's Mette.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mette. Makes sense.
Yeah, so I heard someone talk about their church and how they went there and that they were a part of the students program there. And I was like, I would love to be a part of that. So I came actually on a Sunday with her and her family. And then I also got introduced to the student ministry at San Mateo. And yeah, I've been connected ever since.
Amazing.
Great. Yeah.
So cool. We talk about, hey, if you should invite people and make space in your life for people, which is amazing. And Mette is like so for it that she's like, I'm about to invite myself. I love it.
Yeah.
That is probably not a strategy we can assume like everybody's going to do.
Yeah.
I think it's
We
gonna,
shouldn't get buses.
Yeah. For most of it, it's
Let's
going to
do it.
take intentionally letting people know that they are like we'd love to have this, most of the time. So, but Menlo school buses.
That could be fun.
I think Menlo school is a thing, and they do have buses. So
Probably.
we probably have a
Yeah.
cease and desist about that.
Probably.
It was our idea first.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Sure.
And you, Mette, you came from Denmark, is that
Yes,
correct?
yeah.
Cool. And there, did you have any background in faith at all? Were you raised, did your parents have any background in any kind of faith?
I was born into the Danish church, which is a Protestant church, and everyone is kind of born into it, but they then can choose to go out of it or just stay in it.
Interesting.
But it was never really like a regular thing. Like we wouldn't go on Sundays, and there's no kids or student programs, so it wasn't like I would go there during like the midweek. So no, not really, no connection or anything. So yeah.
So then when I've seen your parents around church, are you responsible for that?
Yeah.
Really?
I invited my dad on
What?
Easter 2021, I think. And I started in January 2021. So a little month where I was just there by myself. And I was like, okay, I can finally invite my parents. Like, I feel confident in Menlo Church. And then my mom, because of the Danish church and the stigma there's around churches in America, in Denmark, she was finally like, okay, I'll come. So on Mother's Day 2021, she came. So that was just amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Way to go, Mette.
Oh, thanks.
That's incredible.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That really is.
Yeah.
And it's just been so fun again, and we're so blessed by not only you, but the intern, the whole Next Gen team for putting on a kids camp this past summer where we served over 550 kids. And it was fun. Those that are like, hey, that's a lot of kids. How did that happen? It was mostly Mette and your team getting curriculum from one place to the other, making sure every room had the right amount of craft material or everything that was on the stage was all set up properly. So, man, you guys did so much. What are some of your highlights from this past summer?
I think one of my highlights is literally just us counting all the material and then also ordering a lot of stuff online, and then there was just boxes, like towers of boxes growing
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then a lot of recycling was definitely
Okay.
done. But then also all the hard work that we did prepping these curriculums, it was really amazing to see it during those 2 camp weeks
For
that we
sure.
had.
Yep.
See it be used by the kids and seeing
Absolutely.
these like seeds being planted and how much fun the kids had.
That's
Yeah.
so good. Thanks, Matt. And not only that, you taught our message for Big Church this past weekend. No, I'm just kidding. You didn't. I just wanted to see what you would do.
I was like, I did.
That was Phil leading us
Yeah.
through week 3 of our Foreign Faith series. So, Phil,
Yes.
for those that might have missed it, what were we chatting about? And then we'll dive in.
So we've been in the series paralleling Israel leaving Egypt and some of the sort of milestone moments that they had from the Red Sea in week 1. Last week, Matt talked about the golden calf. And then this week, we dove into manna, which is this kind of unique bread material that God provided every single day for Israel and instituted a Sabbath. And so we talked about that stuff through the lens of like Israel's already failed a bunch of times. God's still showing up and faithful. Now they're failing again, even in the midst of God's faithfulness, and he's still showing up. And so with this overarching idea of God's still there even when you mess up, as long as you keep turning back to him, his plan for you is still here and still real. And then some kind of practical next steps around what does it look like to trust that he'll do that every day, and what does it look like to trust God by being prepared to rest.
Yeah. Curious, I was thinking about this, Phil, as I was listening to this message and running through the context of where we're sitting. I mean, there's such a high pressure here. The Bay Area is notorious for making things, and if you don't make it, then you fail, your company fails, or if you don't make it into Stanford as a high schooler, then you failed. It just feels like there's so much pressure here. Have you noticed that as you've done ministry in different contexts, Phil, how did you specifically run our context as you're preparing for this message?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Silicon Valley is, we've talked about this before, the most higher pressure place that I've ever done ministry. Honestly, I think especially for students and young professionals, there's this idea, especially if you grew up around here, and Matt, you can fill us in on this. I think there's this expectation across all of American culture that whatever my parents let me experience as a child or as a student becomes the floor of what I hope to experience as a life. That's
Yeah.
kind of the American dream. And in Silicon Valley, that's just not sustainable. Like the floor of what you've experienced as a kid or as a student is this wild place to live that you probably can't buy into most of the time. Jobs with incredible precision and affluence that come with them that if you get to will take decades to get there. And the pressure of how do I get there as fast as possible. And we've said, we're kind of in our region professionally accelerated and personally delayed. There are consequences to that. And so just trying to name in this, like, rest is, I think, one of the biggest countercultural ideas. It doesn't mean that we don't work hard, but it means that we have rhythms of rest where we abide in, where we stay connected to, where we make time for unhurried time with God and with people. And so I think, we see Israel with lots of good reasons to freak out. Like they're going from encampment area to encampment area, led by a pillar of smoke and a pillar of fire, food that they're hoping shows up every day, but it's only enough for that day. Like those sound like good reasons to panic. And yet they continued to trust God and believe that he would show up. And so in a place where it makes sense to panic, like if you think, man, how am I going to get into that school? How am I going to afford that house? How am I going to get to that milestone that quickly? How am I going to change the world? How am I going to do this startup? How am I going to get bought out? How is this going to go public? I think the same kind of ferocity with which we might panic, God gives us the same invitation to trust him every day and the same invitation to rest.
Yeah. Matt, I'm curious for you, going to high school here and then going down to UCLA to study architecture, which is awesome. In your peer group or in your friends, how did this pressure affect relationship or affect how you viewed yourself? And then was that any different after you started going to church?
It's definitely a big thing, like pressure, especially in high school and wanting to get into these big important schools and
Sure.
thinking that's how I see like the world is going to see me and how I see myself and put that as like the standards to your life. But yeah, after coming to Christ, it was really just surrendering to his plan and just praying like, God, I know you have like a place for me and a place like the perfect place for me, and I just trust you in this process, the college like application process, and also just like in high school itself, and just being like, I am gonna spend time in school, yeah, but I'm also gonna focus on forming this relationship with him, because being too focused on school, I found myself like kind of comparing myself to others, but then becoming like coming to church more and more, I really was like, but my identity is in Christ. Like my identity is not in what AP classes I'm taking, what college I get into, it's in him. And just being like, that's all I need, you know? And I think being able to make the time to go to church and connect with fellow students was really, really nice, because we could talk about just God and how great he's been in our life. And while we might be in this season of confusion with college application or whatever it may be, we just know we have him and are rooted in him and have that firm foundation.
So good, Matt. Come on.
That's the best.
That was the best. I love, too, how we kind of started out with this idea of examining the story where God was providing for his people daily. Not just for the next day, but literally for that day. And if they tried to collect extra, it got gross and moldy and full of worms. And I never like really put it together until you said it, Phil, but afterward I was like, oh, duh. Like, that's probably what morning quiet times now with God are. And when we say quiet times, that's Christianese for basically however you connect with God, whether that's a cup of coffee in prayer or reading through a scripture or whatever that looks like, and trying to build in that practice daily. I was like, oh, that's exactly what it's rooted in. So thank you for reminding me of that. Sure. And also, what other modern day equivalents of, as we see this story of these people that are being provided for daily, but still feeling frustrated, or maybe, God, why can't I have a little bit more? I know I need to focus around today, but I need tomorrow too, and where am I going? What encouragement can you give for people that are feeling that way, and maybe daily practices that we can try to center ourselves back to God's provision?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're not that different than Israel in some ways.
No.
That Sabbath, this day of rest, this weekly practice of a 24-hour period where they did not work. Orthodox Jews still celebrate it today. They did it because, I mean, it was a gift in the wilderness. Israel did not have this before. It was being instituted by God in this moment.
Okay.
So God modeled it in creation, but it's instituted in the law here.
Got it.
We don't follow it out of law, but the principle of Sabbath rest is absolutely a principle we follow. You may have Christians that they're really passionate about Sabbath and they have really strong practices. Others may not. But I think if you consider why God did it at this time for Israel, I mean, this is a 40-year re-education process for God with his people, where they're going from generation after generation after generation, hundreds of years in Egyptian captivity, to 40 years in the wilderness. This idea of daily provision of manna rather than their enslavers, and the idea of going from working 365 days a year. There was no HIPAA laws. There was no what's my 401k. There was no vacation policy. Like, just keep working, and if you don't, we'll beat you, and if you still don't, we'll kill you. That's what they had.
Yeah.
And I think we can go, wow, that sounds crazy, but I've heard people talk about working in Silicon Valley in a way that feels pretty enslaving. They may be doing it for their own expectations. They may be doing it in this kind of like lottery ticket mode where it's like, I'm in startup thing right now, so I'm just going to give it the next 5 years and I'll work 90 hours a week and see what can happen. I feel like I hear that story very regularly in Silicon Valley.
Yep.
And this idea of how do we genuinely rest and experience time with God and with each other, I think is like this sort of foreign faith defiance from the cultural gods around us. And then I think the other side of it, and I tried to touch on this, is that rest and recreation are different. That it's really fun to go on vacation. It's really like Mark and we remember someday in the past where we used to like to get on bikes and ride bikes.
Fun.
Someday again, I miss it so much. But like that's a time intensive experience, and it's a spiritual rhythm for me. I like it, but it takes like work to get ready. Make sure your bike's ready. Like, hey, is it okay if I go? All right, do I have time on the calendar? You go do it. You come back. You have to get ready. You're tired a little bit. That's not the same thing of what we're talking about here. And so the idea for if you said we're gonna make, say you wanted Sunday to be your Sabbath day on a regular basis, this is like, what would you do to make as much of your Saturday meaningfully restful as you could? Hey, I'm going to set my Bible out and my journal open. I'm going to have the coffee ready and scheduled to go so I don't have to set it up in the morning. I'm going to make sure that all those emails are sent so that I'm not thinking about that the next day. I'm going to make sure that, you know, that barbecue that is one I really actually don't want to go to and is going to be kind of annoying, that I just don't go to it. And so I think what would it look like to pre-decide, to prepare for rest? We talked this weekend about getting ready for rest. That's what it takes. If rest is really a responsibility, it takes getting ready for. And so God patterned that with Israel, and I think there's a lot more in common for us if we let it, to be ready. I think it's an easy cop-out to be like, well, I had 20 minutes here and 20 minutes there, and that's fine. Like, if that's where you need to start. But if you've never taken a 24-hour period where you don't work, I'm telling you, it is transformative. And what God is saying to Israel is, do that every single week. And ministry, honestly, is pretty hard to do that. Like, it's, we work on Sundays. Some of you think that's the only day we work, but we work other days too. So that's like a day maybe for you, you think, well, I'm not going to work. That'll be my Sabbath. But in ministry, typically we get Friday and Saturday as our days off. But most roles in ministry were always at least on call. Like, you know, I had an emergency thing come up this week that was like, oh, I'm stepping into an emergency thing. And so how do you insulate and protect that time as much as you can, given the unique circumstances of your life? I think that is as relevant as it's ever been. And if we're going to live a foreign faith or it's different than the world around us, this is one of the most countercultural practices we can embrace.
Right. There's something too about when you pause and introduce a breath into your rhythm of work, it allows you to see in your eyes, to see a little bit more of the urgency culture that we're talking about, where you just become more aware of the pace that you're moving at. Otherwise, it's so easy to just get swept up in the current and ride along, and you don't really realize the creep towards non-Sabbath that you can experience. And so I love the idea of trying to intentionally prepare for the Sabbath. And when we say Sabbath, I don't want people to think, oh, this means like I can't do anything. I just have to sit there in my quiet time with God and read my Bible, and like that's what Sabbath has to mean. I think Sabbath is something that can be intentionally refreshing. That can look like sitting and reading your Bible, sure. And if that's it for you, great. If that is intentional time with family, great. If that's putting your phones away for 4 hours and having a dinner together that you prepped for the day before and you're looking forward to and you make together as a family, great. Or if that's going out, it's just something that will intentionally give you life and a break in pace from the day-to-day that we can get swept up in.
Totally agree. And I think there's a parallel spiritual practice of Sabbath, which is slowing, right? That like, if you're Sabbathing, but you're like, I did 75 really cool things on Sabbath. Well, it's cool that you did those things, but it probably wasn't exactly Sabbath. And I parallel it to when I've done like a road trip and you're used to highway speeds, or maybe like highway speeds plus a little, and you've been driving very quickly for a very long time. And then it's always hard for me. The only speeding ticket I've gotten in California actually was we were coming up from Southern California. We've been driving for 7 hours or whatever. And we are 10 minutes from our house. And I'm on 280 and I'm driving on it like I'm driving on 5. And I get pulled over and I didn't realize that the baseline expectation of speed had slowly crept up in me. And I think one of the things that Sabbath does is like, oh gosh, I'm like just going too fast. Like
Yeah.
we're all going a little reckless. Like
Right.
there's a reason that the roads are rated for specific speeds. And in the summertime, one of the slowing practices that I do that's really helpful, and I do it on days of rest too, is I live in Menlo Park. Our offices are in Menlo Park. I don't have school pickup and drop off stuff. So more often than not, I walk. Like
Yeah.
my car has probably gotten a few 100 miles on it in the last couple of months.
Nice.
And that like is annoying because I'm used to getting to where I'm going
Sure.
inside of just a little while, and it takes longer. But I think, what are the practices for you on a Sabbath that doesn't just have to, you're not like a monk in your own house, but are just slowing. Like don't microwave it, cook it, don't drive, walk. What are the things that you can do that are just going to take time on purpose?
Yeah. That is so countercultural.
For sure, yeah.
It, like, even just thinking about it, I was like, oh, I don't know. I mean, yeah, that sounds good, Phil, but I don't really want to do that. Or that sounds really hard. It
Yeah.
sounds like it's not worth doing because it's too hard.
For sure, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But, like, if you run the car too fast for too long, you blow the engine.
Yeah.
Like, that's what happens. And I think it's pride in me when I go, I know that's true of a car, but that's, like, not true of me. Like, oh, no, it is. And maybe you experience me teaching or experience me in the podcast, and you're like, well, maybe, Phil, you're just like one of those softies in ministry, and it's like so easy for you to rest and relax, easy for you to say. I would just say, like, if you interacted with me on a regular basis, you would know that the advice that I'm giving you is pretty hard fought advice in my own life. Like this is actually difficult to practice, but it is worth the work.
For sure. I would even say it's harder to continue to practice.
For sure.
Like, it's hard enough to start,
Yeah.
but so incredibly hard to keep up the practice
Yeah.
week after week, because you experience that creep of more demand from family or school or work. There's always going to be a reason why Sabbath should take a hit this week, but it is so important. And I love the example that you gave about calendar, and you said, I do what my calendar says.
Right.
Literally calendar out. I'm not doing it. This is my Sabbath time, or this is my intentional time with my friends or my family or with God. And so I thought that was a great takeaway for this week as well.
Well, and if you haven't read the book Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer, it's kind of the book that like blew him up a little bit, is all about this. And I probably go back through that book once a year. I could probably go through that book every 6 months.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
because of everything you just described, where it's like a car that's out of alignment. You're like, all right, we're back into alignment. But just like the potholes and the bumps and bruises of life, you get out of alignment quick.
Yeah, definitely. And in parallel with the importance of Sabbath was also this identity theme that went throughout the service as well, where not trying to attach yourself to your failures or your shortcomings, because God's grace covers all of that. And so as I was listening to that, it was just an equal parts convicting of like, okay, even for me, in order to try to get perspective enough to make that a reality in my life, sometimes the pace gets in the way of that.
For sure.
And I'm just trying to cover up my failure that I just had with the 2 wins that I'm going to have if I just work a little bit harder. And so that's just like almost a coupling of pace and perspective that allows us to really experience the grace that God has for us. And so, Mette, I'm curious for you, what has that looked like in your life where you have experienced times or maybe you felt like a failure, and what was it about God's grace, or a reminder that you aren't what you do, but who God calls you who God calls you to be, or who you're becoming? And so, what are your thoughts around that?
Good question. Yeah, definitely. There's been times where I've been like, oh, I wish I did that instead, or I would have been able to serve more people and serve God in a better way if I did this instead. But it's just always coming like back to the heart and just coming back to being that servant. And I love serving people, and just being intentional with my time, and just being like, I'm in this moment now, I'm here now, and just really be present and value the time that I get to spend with God. Definitely practicing the the Sabbath has been a big thing for me. It's mainly the quiet time in the morning, which has been very helpful for me and in building my faith. And just like during Lent, I really found myself just scrolling, or right before Lent, I found myself like being like, okay, I need a little breather. Let me just go on Instagram and start scrolling.
Yeah,
And that
of
was the way
course.
that I was like, oh, I'm like resting, but I was not resting at all. So
Matt, you're describing my afternoons right
So-
now. When I get home from work, I feel convicted.
right,
Uh-huh.
I still do it a little bit,
Yeah.
but then deleted the Instagram app and literally
Nice.
just put the Bible app right where the Instagram app was. So every single time I was like, oh, let me go. Oh no, I don't have the app.
Yeah.
Go into the Bible app, do the daily devotional, find a scripture, do a little Bible study on that. Just really centering back on God and just finding that peace and that rest in Him. And that just like feeling Him and having that rest and assurance that He's here and that like my failures doesn't define me.
Sure.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that perspective changes your peer relationship? I would imagine that a lot of your friends, whether they're in church or not, are experiencing this pressure of, man, like I need to perform, I need to do well, whether that's at work or on this next exam or whatever else. How do you feel like your perspective changes that relationship, and what does that look like?
There's definitely been changes since coming to Christ. I, of course, still try my best in school.
Of course.
I try. But yeah, there's also just like the time where I'm like, I can't study more. Like, I need to take that breather and just sit in silence or sit on the floor just worshiping or whatever it may be. And I think there is that point where you're like, I'm trying to become this or trying to study more and more and more, but you get into this like never ending loop and just getting off that and sitting with God is really the way I have seen changed in me, sitting instead of being like caught up in that, just being like everything is going to be okay.
I feel like that wouldn't be the normal response from other kids around you or students around you.
Definitely
So what are they
not.
thinking when you're doing this?
They're like, are you not scared you're going to fail the exam? I'm like, I study as much as I can. And I also just need this little time with Jesus and everything will be all right because he's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's so interesting about that, and that's like, I mean, how many of us listening to this who are no longer Mette's age wish that we had the perspective that she has at her age, at our age? That's amazing, Mette.
Yes.
But you know what's interesting is that neurologically and from like a statistic productivity level, we know that what Mette is saying is true. That actually, even from a Sabbath and centering experience, you know, they will say, productivity experts will say, 50 hours is basically like kind of peak productivity for your week. And by the time you hit 60 hours, you are not more productive than you were at 50 hours. Past 60 hours, you are actually less productive than 40.
Wow.
So when you have people that are doing what you're talking about, like they're just studying, they're actually doing more harm than good. And it's like God's going, hey guys, I know. I built you this way. That's why I'm telling you to do it this way.
Yep.
Yes.
And I think it can be really counterproductive, but I hope that it becomes like a really fun thing for you to be able to show people, hey, when God says we can rest in Him, we can work from our identity in Him, we can do our best. You know, I think it's a Dallas Willard quote that in our relationship with God, God's not opposed to effort; He's opposed to striving. And so we can work, but are there boundaries to the work that we're doing where we remember whose we are, where we make sure that we have space for rest and real meaningful relationships? You are not, God didn't call you to be a doer. He called you to be, you are a human being, not a human doer. And I think it's easy in Silicon Valley to twist that up.
Yes.
Definitely. I have a question, Phil. So I'm trying to sit in this tension of I need to be grateful and I need to rest in what God has for me today. And at the same time, I feel like in order to have a good tomorrow, I need to be thinking about tomorrow today.
Yeah.
So are those at, like, in my brain, it feels like those are at odds with each other. Are they actually at odds?
I think there's a difference between planning for tomorrow and living in tomorrow, right?
Oh, yeah.
James has a really, half-brother Jesus has sort of a beautiful picture where he's talking about a hypothetical, and he's like, hey, a couple of friends say, we're going to go to this place, we're going to do such and such, we'll make some money, it'll be amazing. But what you really should say is, if the Lord wills, we'll go do this and that. And I think that there is when we have certainty about our level of control for the future, and we're making decisions that in our head we go 1 + 1 = 2. This is what my retirement will look like. This is what, being a dad or a mom will look like. This is what going to that school will look like. The firmer those expectations about the future become, I think the more likely we aren't just thinking about the future. We're not just praying about the future. We're actually living into the worries of the future. And where we ended, in the words of Jesus this last week, right, that we can trust God with the future. And I don't think he's saying we shouldn't think about the future. We have plenty of places in the scripture where they're thinking about the future.
Right.
Well, what Jesus says is, don't worry about tomorrow, because today has enough worries of its own, and you have a loving Father who's already ahead of you. He already knows what's coming. And this is the weird God stuff where time is an invention of God. So if you think about the God of the universe, he exists outside of time, and this is where it gets really confusing. The future day that you are most worried about in your life, God doesn't just know what's going to happen on that day. He currently exists on that day.
Yes.
Like he's there right now. And so you today freaking out going, oh my gosh, how am I going to, and what if, and oh God. Like in other words, if you're Enneagram 6, like just understand you can plan for the future and pray for the future, but don't worry about the future. Like it's not going to add, what does Jesus say? What does it add to you a single day to worry, to have anxiety about the future? Now, it's one thing to go like, I have a diagnosis of anxiety. We've talked about that. We did a series about that. I'm not minimizing that. But for the vast majority of us, I think it's the freedom to go, God's got that. Like I don't have to constantly dwell and worry about a future that isn't here yet. Letting my life be consumed with worry for a future that isn't here yet robs today of its power and tomorrow of its hope. And so, like, just understand you get to live today with a God who loves you today. And he'll be there tomorrow, just like he was for Israel.
That's amazing. Thanks, Phil. Such a good
sure.
reminder. I also love that you ended with 3 things, and I'm going to repeat them now for us to carry into this week. That 1, failure is not your identity. That grace is a daily gift, and that God won't give up on you. So good.
Yeah.
Well, Phil, thanks so much for being on, as always. Matt, thank you, too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. So as we're headed into fall, Matt, we've got some things for kids and students that are happening.
Oh, yeah.
What can you invite people to? What are you excited about as our fall is going to kick off?
I'm so excited for everything. I love everything student and kids related.
I know you do.
But Back to School Bash is coming up.
Yep.
A big old party for the kids and the students that are going to transition to the next grade. It's
Awesome.
bittersweet, definitely.
Yeah.
But it's
And
so
that's
fun
this
to
weekend.
see.
That's this weekend.
Yeah.
Every campus, every age group.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Every age group. Yeah, it's fun.
Let's go.
It's going to be a party.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, be excited.
Great. Well, see everybody there. Thanks again so much for tuning in. If you even need any prayer or encouragement this week, you can text our team, 650-600-0402. And hey, if you are some of the people that have been texting this number, thank you. I mean, the prayer requests that we've been getting recently, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing some of the hardest parts that are happening in your life. We have a team that cares about you and is praying for you throughout your week. So again, we cherish those prayers. Send in questions for us as well if you'd like to ask anything that we can pass on here on the podcast. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you soon.